Hello and welcome to the Wilder Lincolnshire podcast from the Lincolnshire Wildlife Trust. I'm Melvyn Pryor. I've got Richard with me today and we're continuing our series of the Beginner's Guide to, and today we're talking about warblers. So Richard, what is a warbler?
Yeah, so a warbler basically gets its name from its song, so also warbling sort of series of notes and calls, so quite scratchy, quite repetitive tunes.
Now, a lot of warblers are easily identifiable by the name because they are called a something warbler. But not all warblers are named like that because, for example, we've got a blackcap that was singing in the background. That's a warbler.
Yeah, it is, yep. So also similarly to blackcap, like chiffchaff as well. So chiffchaff's also a warbler, but again, not got the warbler name in its title.
And where do warblers generally spend most of the time during the year?
Yeah, so it kind of depends on the species. So a few species, so most of them are migratory. So 3/4 of the birds that come to the UK actually winter in Africa. So they come here for the breeding season. So typically sort of mid-April, then depart again sort of September, October. But as part of those, you also get 3 or 4 species that overwinter here. So things like chiffchaff, blackcap, Chetty's warbler, Dartford warbler. So also as a result of climate change as well, quite a few species are staying in the UK. So things like chiffchaffs, which in the past never used to winter in the UK, or used to get a couple that wintered, but now we're seeing a lot more wintering here in the UK.
So you mentioned chiffchaffs. Let's stay with those for the moment. Yeah. They're quite recognisable by their call, aren't they?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so you kind of hear that quite repetitive sort of chiffchaff, chiffchaff, chiffchaff song.
And what's the habitat that they're generally looking for?
Yeah, so chiffchaffs are usually more sort of woodland areas, so any big sort of woodland plantations. So here at Gibraltar Point, got the plantation here. So do get a couple of birds that overwinter here, but they do like the quite big plantations. And also things like quarry sites as well, and sort of sewage plants as well. So quite like sewage plants.
Oh, very nice. So if you've got a sewage plant nearby, there's an advantage. You could find a chiffchaff.
Yeah, nowhere around here. As far as
Indeed. So let's have a listen then. This is the chiffchaff. So the chiffchaff, recognisable there by its call. Now, it's gone silent, but when we arrived here just a little while ago, there was a blackcap, very loud call from the blackcap. So tell us a bit about those.
Yeah, so again, blackcap's one of those species like the chiffchaff. So again, as part of climate change and warmer winters, more insects available throughout the winter months. We are seeing a lot more blackcaps wintering in the UK. So particularly if you've got quite a big garden again, you've got fat ball feeders out in the winter, they can be attracted to fat ball feeders when food's quite scarce during those sort of cold spells. So you get quite a few visiting gardens in the winter months.
So blackcap, it's got a black cap on its head, hasn't it?
It has indeed. So the male has the black cap, but the female and the juvenile birds or immature birds have a reddy brown cap. So they can sort of catch you out a little bit.
And again, locations for those, what are we looking for?
Yeah, so black caps, so again, quite variable. So usually sort of big mature trees, so woodlands really good, mature hedgerows, even scrub as well. So if you've got like mix of scrub in a grassland habitat, but very much usually more mature woodland is more favoured.
Was that blackcap that I hear just in the background there?
Yeah.
There's a bit of a call going out. Let's have a listen to it then, the blackcap. And again, blackcaps will be nesting, will they?
Yeah, so it's one of those species that's also increased quite a bit in the UK. So in the past, here at Gibraltar Point, for example, just 15 years ago, in the plantation, you might have had maybe 3 or 4 nesting pairs. And now we're seeing double figures, so 15 to 20 nesting pairs.
And again, insect eaters, are all warblers looking for insects?
Yeah, so majority of warblers are insects, but they will go to sort of like seeds in the winter, things like Chetty's warblers when food's a bit scarce. They mentioned about the blackcap going to the fat ball feeders.
So we've mentioned 2 of the warblers that don't have warbler in the name, but how many warblers might we get in the UK?
Yeah, so in the UK, so there are 15 nesting species. 2 of those are quite rare species, so they are the marsh warbler and the southeast warbler. So again, very rare breeders in the UK, more sort of south coast. And the southeast warbler likes sort of big reed beds. So again, very few pairs, maybe 5 to 10 pairs in the UK. A common species, so 13 species of warbler in the UK. Here at Gibraltar Point, we've got 9 species, so quite a good significant population of warblers.
So 9 out of 13 of the common species are here at Gibraltar Point?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so
that must be one of the biggest numbers of different sorts of warblers on any of your reserves.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so the good thing about Gib is the amount of habitats that we have here. So quite a nice varied amount of habitats. So again, then supports those different species.
So let's venture onto the site, go to a different location. Where are we going to go to next?
So we're going to head to the sand dunes next to hopefully get some whitethroats, maybe less of whitethroat with a bit of luck. Also willow warbler. Fingers crossed.
Well, fingers crossed, and you're here to identify them for us, so let's head off to the dunes. So we've moved across from the orchard area, across to the dunes, and we heard a chiffchaff on the way.
Yeah, we did. So we can just hear one to the left of me, just singing in the hedgerow behind us.
So the dunes area that we're in now, what sort of warblers might we hear and see here?
Yeah, so the first one, probably the most diagnostic, is the whitethroat. So out of all the species at Gibraltar Point, whitethroat's probably the commonest species that nests on site. So it's quite amazing to think this is actually a summer migrant that comes from sub-Saharan Africa for the winter. It breeds here at Gibraltar Point. It's also our commonest breeding bird in the dunes. So over 100 pairs nest here.
So whitethroat, obviously it's got a white throat.
It has indeed.
So if you're lucky enough to see it,
yeah.
Is that the main identifying characteristics of it?
Yeah, so the first thing you'll hear is the song, which we can hear just now. So you can hear his very, very scratchy song, so quite diagnostic. So once you hear that, then draws your attention to the bird. And when they first arrive on the reserve, they can be quite showy. So you'll see them on top of the bushes, just giving this really nice scratchy song. So the male's got his nice grey head with the white throat. The female's got the brown head with the white throat.
Now, just to confuse things, there is also a lesser white throat that when I looked at a picture of one, looked as if it got more white.
Absolutely, yeah, just to confuse things. It's a lesser white throat's a much scarcer bird than the white throat. I've seen about the white throat, 100 breeding pairs. Lesser white throat, probably talking 10 pairs at most. And these do favour more mature woodland habitats or scrubby habitats, so big mature hedgerows.
So again, let's have a listen then. Distinctive difference then between the calls of the white throat and the lesser white throat. This is the lesser.
So you can hear with a lesser white throat, it starts off a bit like a white throat. It's quite scratchy. Then you've got that really nice rattle at the end, so quite rattly. Whereas white throat's more scratchy. So you can pick that out with a bit of experience once you've heard a few.
And again, looking at the birds again, it's got the white throat. Anything that would distinguish them from the white throat?
Yeah, so lesser white throat again can be quite secretive. So white throats can be quite showy, but lesser white throat in comparisons can be quite shy birds. So they'll be hunkered down in the bushes. But if you are lucky to see one really white underneath, as we mentioned, white throat really white underneath. The plumage is much greyer, so the white throat is quite a brown, quite warm plumage, quite brown on top, whereas lesser white throat is very grey. You also see with the lesser white throat, they've got like a black eye mask as well, which you can see in the spring.
So again, we're at the dunes. So what else might we spot here? Is there another warbler we can look out for and listen out for?
Yeah, there is indeed. So there's the willow warbler. So it's quite an interesting species. So again, very similar to chiffchaff, but that song's very different, which, as you can hear here. So you can hear those really nice sort of descending notes as it sings.
So willow warbler, is it looking for willow, or will it nest and appear in other places?
So it's an interesting one with willow warblers. So they do, as I mentioned about willow trees, they do like quite thick scrub. So not so much a woodland bird, more of a scrubland bird. And here on the reserve, we have noticed quite a decline in willow warbler numbers. So in the historical days, probably 20, 30 pairs, just rough estimation. Whereas nowadays, sort of three or four nesting pairs.
And is that because the habitat has changed?
I think the main thing is again climate change again. So as the summers are getting warmer, they're moving further north. So up in Scotland, on the Isle of Skye, for example, it's becoming much more common in Scotland, so kind of declining more in the UK, in England, then kind of increasing more in Scotland, like populations sort of shifting northwards.
Now that's interesting because we're recording this in May, where we've had, heat wave, record-breaking temperatures. Could that be a pattern then for some of these birds that don't want it quite so hot to go further north?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of both really. So certain species are more adaptable. So things like whitethroats, chiffchaffs, blackcaps are quite adaptable. So they're actually increasing in number, and sedge warbler. Whereas a few species like the willow warbler are declining. So some species are more adaptable than others.
Okay, well here we are at the dunes. Where shall we head to next, and what might we hear and see there?
Yeah, so we're going to head to the wetland areas next, hoping to see things like sedge warbler, reed warbler, if we're lucky a grasshopper warbler.
I'll look out for those as well then. So let's head to the wetland area. So Richard, we've moved on from the dunes, and on the way to our next location we've actually come across some dragonflies, haven't we? Were they hairy ones, did you say?
Yeah, they were indeed. So hairy dragonfly. So as the name suggests, it is quite hairy. So if you look at the abdomen of the body, it's very hairy. They used to be quite a rare species here just 10 years ago. And
I love it. I love it when it's obvious why it's called a hairy dragonfly. I love that.
Yeah.
But that's going to be too big for the warblers to eat, although they love the insects, don't they?
Yeah, that's right. So like mosquitoes, that sort of thing. So dragonflies, more hobbies. So hobbies will take the dragonflies straight off the wing as they fly around.
Excellent. Now we've come to this area here. We've got some water behind us, some lovely yellow irises that are out as well. But what sort of warblers might we hear here?
Yeah, so now we're coming to a bit of a wet habitat, so like ditches, ponds, really good for certain species. So things like sedge warbler, so quite a loud song, as you can hear here. So a lot of people do mistake this call for the reed warbler. So the songs are very similar, but with sedge warbler much louder, much higher pitched, quite varied as well. So you can hear a couple in the background.
Oh yes, indeed. Yeah.
Whereas sedge warbler is quite loud and varied. Whereas reed warbler much lower pitched, so very very monotonous really, quite low pitched, quite quiet.
So the sedge warbler, what are we looking at when we're looking at the bird? What identifying factors have we got there?
As I mentioned about the songs, quite diagnostic. Again, it takes a bit of practice and experience to kind of separate the two on song. But once you've seen the bird, nice white eye stripe. So sedge warbler's got a really nice white eye stripe. So if you see that along with the stripes down the back, definite sedge warbler. Whereas a reed warbler, very brown and plain. So quite different in appearance.
I tend to just think of reed warblers when I think of warblers, and we'll get onto those a little bit later on. But okay, we've got the sedge here. What else might we find in this sort of location?
And so here at Gibraltar Point, we're quite lucky to have a couple of grasshopper warblers. So 2 to 3 nesting pairs in this area. So you're listening out for that really nice song. It's like an insect trill, a bit like a grasshopper, which we can hear now.
Oh, very much like a grasshopper sound then, doesn't it?
And this song can go on for about 2 or 3 minutes, just non-stop. Just quite amazing, really, how they do it.
And again, identifying the grasshopper when you see them?
As again, one species you don't really see that often, so you'll always hear them before you see them. So if you're lucky to see one, quite a dull brown bird with nice sort of black-white stripes down the back, which can be quite diagnostic. But
and again, I know we've talked about this before, how important it is to identify the sound. We've got these apps now that we have on the phones. We can use those to at least get an idea where to look for the bird.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so things like Merlin, really good. So I was doing a Dawn chorus walk here a few weeks ago, and quite a few people in the group were using the Merlin app, picking out all the birds. So quite impressive, really.
Now, I was somewhere the other day. I was actually down at Rutland Water, and I had the app on there, and it was showing up a garden warbler. Ooh. Would we get garden warblers here?
Oh, very nice. Yeah, so here at Gibraltar Point, so these are more sort of inland birds, so inland residents reservoirs, big scrubby patches, woodlands. So places like Snipedale's, probably the best site in the county for golden warbler, as well as Wisby Nature Park as well.
But not here at the Gibraltar Point.
Not here. No, so we get maybe 1 or 2 singing birds a year if you're lucky. So quite scarce here on the coast.
Okay, well, let's get to the location of the reed warbler, the one that I'm hoping to identify. Where are we off to find and hear those?
Yes, we're going to head to the wetlands now. So we're going to head to Tennyson Sands and see what we can see. There's also been a couple of nice avocet chicks as well recently.
Very
They've
good.
just hatched.
Let's hope we can see those as well.
Indeed.
So a slightly different sound now because we've come into one of the bird hides here at Gibraltar Point. Well, we were talking about the sedge warbler, and on the way here, we were checking on one of those apps, and we thought it was the sedge warbler, but it came up as something else.
Yeah, that's right. So because the sedge warbler is quite a keen mimic, it can mimic up to 30 species of bird.
Like what?
So, for example, yellow wagtail.
Right.
Also, we had once a bee eater, make a perfect bee eater impression. So we're all looking around looking for a bee eater, and we actually realised it's just a sedge warbler, making it quite a funny call.
Now, that would have been a treat if it had been a bee eater.
Yeah.
But again, you're checking out, identifying what might be in the area, what's most likely to be that call, aren't you?
Yeah, definitely. So I always say with things like Merlin, I always want to kind of see the bird before I'm 100% happy.
Yeah.
That's what I always say.
Indeed. Now, I mentioned we're in a hide. Which hide is it?
Yep, so we're now on Tennyson Sands. It's one of the brackish water lagoons here at Gibraltar Point. So we're now in Fenella Hope Hide. So the middle hide of Tennyson Sands.
I've never been here before. It's absolutely fabulous. Teeming with bird life across here. We've just watched a marsh harrier being mobbed by oyster catchers.
Yeah, that's right. Yes, there'll probably likely be a couple of oyster catchers nesting just sort of to the west here on the farmland. So oyster catcher, that marsh harrier's probably got a bit too close to its nest.
Right.
Just trying to see it off.
But we're here to hopefully see and hear warblers as we continue our beginner's guide to warblers. Which ones might we see and hear here?
Yeah, so the most common one we can hear, heard it singing just a few minutes ago. So you've got the reed warbler. It's a very common, as the name suggests, so in the reeds. So you can find these near your home as well. So anywhere you've got ditches with reeds, you'll get reed warbler. Quite similar to the sedge warbler, but the habitat's slightly different. So you get sedge warbler more where you've got bushes, so they're like a mix of reeds and bushes, whereas reed warbler is just like the pure reed beds, as I call it.
And do they actually nest on the reeds then?
Yes, they'll be sort of lower down in the reeds where it's quite thatchy, so that bottom sort of two foot or so.
Let's have a listen. This is the reed warbler.
Yeah, so quite similar to the sedge warbler, but you can hear it's very much quieter, so not as loud, not as imitating, so it kind of makes that same repetitive noise, so over and over again, much lower pitched.
And again, if we are lucky enough to see the bird, what are we looking for there?
So it's all about the eye stripe, so sedge warbler, nice white eye stripe, or we call it the supercilium, to be technical. And then with the reed warbler, it's plain brown head. With maybe a slight eye stripe, but not much of an eye stripe.
But you've got to be a good identifier to spot that, haven't you?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so you often always hear them before you see them.
Okay, so that's the reed warbler.
Yeah.
What else might we hear here?
Yeah, so again, being in the reed bed habitats, Chetty's warbler. So again, quite an interesting one here at Gibraltar Point. So if you go up to Anderby Creek up the coast, talking probably 20 pairs of Chetty's warbler, been nesting there since the early 2000s. Here at Gibraltar Point, always been quite rare birds. Usually just sort of winter visitor. And then the last sort of 5 years have started to colonise the reserve a little bit. So we've now got sort of 3 nesting pairs. And what you're listening for is that really explosive song, which we can hear now.
So Chetty's warbler, lovely one there. Again, if you can see it, what are we looking for?
Yeah, so quite a reddish bird, quite bright bird, quite a strong sticky out tail. Common sandpiper's calling.
Excellent. This is such a lovely, busy spot here that we're viewing. But again, coming back to the warblers, if we want to being with a good chance of recognising them. It's getting those sounds in your head, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. So I'd always kind of start on different habitats. So, for example, I would probably start maybe woodlands first, do like your chiffchaff and your blackcap. Then as you get a bit more confident on those, you can then move to the wetland habitats. We then pick out the reed warbler, sedge warbler and Chetty's warbler. And also if you've got, especially around home, any sort of farmland with like reed beds, little hedgerows, you're going to get things like sedge warbler, reed warbler, whitethroat. It's all quite common birds around farmland and ditches.
And we mentioned here at Gibraltar Point, you get, 9 of the 13 more common warblers.
Yeah.
It's knowing what time of the year also to look out for and listen, because some are here all the time and others aren't.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so if you hear a warbler in the winter, it's not going to be a typical sort of whitethroat, lesser whitethroat, because they're quite rare. Or we don't really get them in the winter. So also be things like blackcap, chiffchaff and Chetty's warbler. They're ones that winter here in Lincolnshire.
So again, go online, do a bit of research, find out a bit about the warblers you're looking for. You can also get the apps where you can listen to the bird sound as well and learn more about them.
Absolutely, yeah.
Indeed. Well, hopefully you found this interesting. Our second in our series of beginner's guides, and this one to do with warblers. And this is all part of the Lincolnshire Wildlife Trust Wilder Lincolnshire podcast.